Hey guys, Jack Spirko here. Yesterday on Duck Chronicles, I showed you guys the basics of my miniature sprouting system. Wanted to do that again today with the tripod, so I have two free hands. I can show you actually how this works now. I've added another bucket to it from yesterday, so I got a longer day to grow out. It's still really cold out, and that first amount of seed that I was doing was that was some old seed. It didn't really grow as well as it usually does, but it still worked. But I'll go over today how simple this is and how quick it really is, and I think it'll be a lot better with two hands on the wheel, so to speak. This is my buddy here. It's one of my little bantam chickens. And no, you're not going up my head right now. You can go over here. Leave her be. Charlie, leave her be. Good dog. Anyway, this is really, really simple, and I wanted to come up with answer a couple things. Number one, the biggest question I keep getting on these systems, how much seed do I start with? Look, okay, let me try to put it to a way that maybe everybody will understand. If I could give one commandment of philosophy to most of the people out there doing homesteading and farmsteading and stuff like that, it would be, thou shalt not take that which is simple and make it complicated. Just pick an amount, see how much you end up with, and if you like it for the amount of animals you're feeding, stick with it. If you think it's too much, use a little less. And if you think it's not enough, use a little more. It's freaking sunflower seed. It's $16 for 40 pounds of it. It's not like you're designing a rocket to go to the moon. Don't make this complicated. I got some questions about the buckets, and like I said yesterday, I don't care what you use, as long as it's big enough to hold enough seed after it grows out, because I'll kind of show you the difference inside it. I'm not being a jerk or mean or nothing. I'm just saying this isn't hard. This is really, this might be one of the simplest things you can do for your flock to cut your food bill and give them something they really like. So what I've got my stack of buckets here in the sink, and what I would normally do, again, we've got the bucket that's soaking right there. So it's two buckets, one inside another. This is our soaking bucket. You don't have to do this. You don't have to have a bucket like this. You could just have a soaking bucket and dump these in there. They kind of stick in all. This just makes it really easy. So we have that top bucket. So now that I'm feeding, I'd come out in the morning, I'd take this soaking bucket and I'd take it out of the way. That would be step one. Step two, I'd go in here. My highest bucket is the stuff that I want to feed right now. I would just leave everything the way it is, go feed the birds, come back, and then do what you're about to see. So I'd go feed them. Since I'm not going to feed them yet, I want to stay on camera here with you here, I'll just dump it there. So I went out and fed the birds. Just to give you kind of a good view. And as you see, it hasn't grown a ton since yesterday. I like them to be a little bit more grown out than this. But it is, it's hitting the 30s at night right now, and it's only getting up into like the 60s during the day. During the summer, with this many buckets, how many days do I got growing? 5 days of growth. Usually you'd have, your first leaves, your non-true leaves popping the shells off by now. But trust me, they'll eat this. See a little chicken there, she'll figure out what's going on. Somebody asked, do chickens like this? Absolutely. People ask, well, can I use barley or wheat or whatever? You can. This produces the highest yield per dollar that I've found, and anybody, anywhere has access to it. And with a small system like this, like I said, if you have a guest bathroom, you could set this in the bathtub that doesn't ever get used. And I might actually change mine in doing that because it is cold out here. It'll grow faster, and my hands won't be so flipping cold. But so, now, just imagine that. I came here, I got that bucket out, I took this, and I went out and I fed the birds. Birds are fed. All right. So here's the rest of what we would do today. Number one, we're going to take the bucket out of the soaking bucket. Let me get these guys out of the sink for you. So we'll go ahead, and I try to drain most of that into there. But some of it, isn't going to drain. I don't want to wait that long for every drop. So now this becomes your bottom bucket. And everything you've grown up to this point goes back in the top. That's all. So now this is just soaked. This is 1 day old, 2 day old, 3 day old, 4 days old. And this is the bucket tomorrow that we'll feed. Now, that goes wherever you're happy with content. Don't let it drain. Take the water in the soaking bucket and dump it through all the buckets. That way everybody got watered for another day of being hydrated. A lot of times I will go ahead and fill the bucket up, or see when this is sitting in the sink, just give it really a good wet down, just to make sure everything gets nice and hydrated. So we got lots of water in there, because those seed holes can hold a lot of water in, as long as we're sticking with enough depth in the bucket for it to work. Now, this is the bucket that held the stuff that I fed today. So now I'm going to put seeds in this bucket. There. You see how I measured it so it's perfect? No, it's filled up to about there. It's about a third of the way up. The reason I did that is because I know that if this grows out right, it will increase its volume by about 2/3. So if I put it halfway up, it's going to grow out the top of the bucket. So when you're choosing your container, you want a container that's somewhere about the size or a little bit bigger than how much you want to produce a day. This is 2.5 quarts. I figure that's plenty of sprouts for a couple birds, or 10 birds and 3 chickens. So that's now in there, and this is a bucket that has holes drilled in the bottom of it. Hard to see, I know, I should have showed you before I did. What size holes? It doesn't matter, as long as the water comes out. I ain't never drilled a hole so small the water wouldn't come out. I guess you might find a bit tiny enough where it doesn't drain well. But basically a hole as big as you can make that the seeds won't fall through them. And if you made a hole in there big enough that you could fit one seed through vertically by sticking it in there and doing it, they're not going to fall out. Maybe 1 or 2 will. It's going to be like a flower pot with holes in the bottom when you put potting soil in it. It kind of all binds up and doesn't fall out. So now we've got this bucket full. We take this bucket, we stick it in our non-hole bucket for soaking, and we're going to fill it up. How far? Enough that the seeds are covered in water and floating a little bit. It doesn't need to be all the way to the top. I'm certainly not going to do that, but I'll let that run until it's got enough water in it that the seeds are well soaked. There's way more water than seeds. If you push down on them, you feel them kind of, they're buoyant like a bog, like cranberries in a bog. So once we get that done, I like to go in there and just kind of make sure the top seeds get wet. All right, take this, stick that in the bucket. It took me longer to explain it than it takes to do it. You get that system set up somewhere, and again, in the winter, the fall, and the spring, the fall, and the summer, it will grow really fast for you outside. In the winter, especially in some of your climates, you're going to have issues with it. You need to put it in an area that's warm, it's heated. If you have a greenhouse, you can do it in your greenhouse. If you have a spare bathroom, you can do it in there. If you have a spouse that's not going to get upset with you, you can set that in a dish rack on the side of your sink in your kitchen. I'm not going to get away with that. That's not going to happen. And honestly, it's not even I'm not going to get away with it. I don't want to do that. I don't want that sitting there. But if some of you folks, I know you kind of live really kind of the heavy homestead life, indoors and out, and it wouldn't bother you for it to be there. And again, you can do this with any container suitable for what you're trying to do. I think one of the best containers you could use are the 5-pound butter tubs. We don't use that. It's really not butter, is it? It's that margarine stuff. I don't use that. I sure could have asked around and got them for free, but I wanted to get this done and start feeding my birds with it, so I don't want to wait any longer. So I went to Lowe's. I bought these things. I put the link in the notes yesterday. I'll put the link in the notes today again. They're like $1.90 on their website. They were like $1.49 when I actually got them at the store. So they're somewhere between $1.50 and $2. If you look at it this way, you need, let's say, 5 grow out buckets and a soaking bucket. You need 6 buckets. So 6 buckets, $2, $12. $12. As far as the seed, as far as the sunflower seed, I don't care what you use, but this right here is what I use. I use it because it's what Tractor Supply sells. 40-pound bag, $16. And again, the volume is going to increase by about 2/3, but the weight will increase by about a factor of 4 in total weight over what you started with, because a lot of it is water. But what that means is that for 40 pounds of seed, you're going to make about 160 pounds of fresh, natural sprouted feed for your birds. When you look at it that way, you're down to pennies a pound, way cheaper than even the cheapest feed you can get them. And this stuff is way better for them than a lot of other feeds. Now, you can't feed them on this alone. This is a supplement. They're really going to enjoy this. Like I said, you can use it to train your birds. It works really good for training birds. For ducks. Someone asked about training chickens. You cannot train a chicken. You can teach a chicken to come to you, and a chicken will on its own decide that in the evening, I need to go home, and it will go back to its coop, and it'll get up on its roost and it'll go to sleep. When I say train, I mean that I can tell my ducks when they're all out there in the yard, all ducks go to bed. And it can be 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and they'll line up and they'll head back to their place. Sometimes they really don't want to go, and you might have to give them a little bit of incentive, but they'll do that. You can train ducks like, let's say that you wanted to have a system where you have a couple different areas your ducks can go every day. Well, what you do is feed them in the area that you want them to go to and give it a name. For instance, I have a west pasture. I can say, go west, go west. And, you know, they're going to head in that direction. Now, these are new ducks. They're not ready to do that yet. But eventually, if every time I take them out in the west pasture and set up their pools out there and I feed them and I say, go west every morning when they're getting fed out there, then it'll get to the point where if I want them to head that way, food or not, when I say go west, it's wired into the little duck brains to go there. Chickens don't do that. The reason ducks do that is because they flock even when they're not flying, right? They flock in groups, they move around. If you watch, you'll see 1 or 2 ducks will make a commitment, we're going this way, and everybody gets in line and goes too. So because of that behavior, if you can get just a couple ducks kind of registering, west, you're going to feed us over there, and they start running, everybody else goes, and you can train them to do that. The other thing you can train your ducks to do, I don't know if you'd ever be able to do this with a big flock like we used to have, but small flocks, like a dozen birds or so, you can train them that an area is a bad area, that you don't want them to go there. So let's say you're going to have a garden out in a certain area. Now, I wouldn't train them just to stay out of the garden itself, but like kind of the whole area around the garden. All you do with that, you don't need to feed for this. You just watch your ducks. And when they get near that area, run over and go, get out of here, run, get out, it's bad, you know, and then they flare, oh my God, they run away. You do that 4 or 5 times at an area, they don't, you know, ducks have this kind of wired in, they don't like change. Well, then they don't expect change, and therefore, every time I go there, something bad's going to happen. The human that feeds me tells me, go away, run away, and I don't like that place, and something bad must be there, so I won't go there. Chickens, good luck with that. Anyway, this is really easy to do. Hope you guys give it a try with your animals. Again, though I do ducks, I do have some chickens. I don't have anything against chickens. I want to make sure this is not anti-chicken. It's just the different intrinsic characteristics of the animals and what you can and cannot expect from your animals based on those intrinsic characteristics. Give the sprouting a try, and if you do, post a video, because what I would love is different people showing they've done the same thing with different containers, so people stop thinking you got to have exactly what I have or the hole's got to be the exact size. None of that stuff is the case. Some of the things I thought of, you know, they have those little kid buckets kids play on the beach with. Now, those things are stupid cheap. That might be good. We don't have them around here because we don't live where the beach is, but if you happen to live where the beach is, maybe you can find those things on clearance in the winter right now for like 50 cents a piece. All you need is a container that's large enough that you're okay putting holes in, and you can do this. If you have any more questions about it, put them down in the comments section below.